let me open Resolve. Closed him down previously. So of course I'm going to go straight back into the project manager, and again just making sure I'm in my editor's guide project library, I'm going to choose import. So again, all of this project has been set up for us. Alright, so I'm going to choose import, and I'm going to navigate to my editor's guide part 2 folder, and we're going to open up lesson 3 folder, and inside there you'll notice we've got a couple of things. We've got a DRT file, we've got a timelines folder, we've got a DRT file, but of course because we're importing a project, the DRT file is not active, it's not a valid project. So we need to select the DRP file. So TML scene DRP. So TML stands for too much life. Again, we can double click that to open that into the edit page. That was the last page that I was on previously. And as you can see, we also got everything is offline. So we need to click on our Relink Media button. Expecting to find it in the Cloud Store Mini, which you don't have, so we'll just click Locate. I'm going to select my Editor's Guide Part 2 folder. It's all in the Media folder. The Editor's Guide Part 2. Click Open, and it should find all of my media. So for this, I'm going to close down the effects. I'm going to close down the inspector. What we have here is something similar to what we had previously. We've got our set of bins here with all of our different footage. Again, the video is all separate to the actual on-location audio. The audio is of sort of varying qualities, but as this is a sort of feature film, the idea of this is that we would cut it for pictures and general audio, but ultimately the mix would be done elsewhere, which we'll talk about as a later step in a later session anyway. So all of the audio is here, all of the video, everything's been synced up and prepared for us. We've also got a timeline called TML scene, which is this initial edit that we've got here. And we've also got a series of smart bins. We've got some keywords for the different characters that are in this scene. And we've also got some custom smart bins, so things like best takes, alternative takes, and pickups, which is really what we're going to be using. We're going to be using these smart bins here. Okay, just to give you a sense of this scene, I'm just going to play it through. It's going to take a little while just to, obviously get through it. Also, I've noticed that the audio is actually quite quiet for this as well, so I'm actually going to increase the audio a little bit here, so I'll increase it a bit more. So obviously it's going to get loud at one point, but it just gives you a sense of this. Now this is all going to be a bit strange because you're going to be watching the scene from a distance. Okay, so this is one take of the scene, and it's all from this sort of rear, this sort of wide shot. So you're going to be watching the scene from a distance, but I think it's important that we get to know what the scene is all about. Okay, and this is the main character, a lady called Harper Hudson, who's been brought into Vice Principal Garrett's office. This is Vice Principal Garrett, and with Principal Everdon next to him, in order to answer for her misdemeanors. And her misdemeanor was damaging and killing a palm tree. Okay, so I will just play this for you for a moment.
Thank you, Willow.
Officer Willow, help yourself to a malasada.
Harper, have a seat. Harper, you do understand that this is a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Principal Everdon.
Vice Principal Garrett.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to kill the tree.
Please call it by its name. It's the centennial palm tree.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
It's the centennial palm tree.
Did they even live that long?
Remember, it's not just about the tree.
She stole school property.
No, no, gave me the security card.
And she ran from
That's
class.
not me. I always do that.
Sit down. Both of you. Come on. Good.
And at which point the scene will continue. However, that's going to be the end of our exercise. Now, again, it might seem a bit strange that I've got you to watch that from such a distance. Obviously, there's certain parts of the dialogue that are a little bit inaudible, but we will get there towards the end of the exercise. What we've effectively got here is we've got the entire scene that's played out from one camera angle. Okay, and what we then have is a series of additional shots, some of which are the entire scene played out, again from different angles, so that the camera would then reposition in order to get the various close-up shots that we need and so forth for the different coverage that the director wants. So our job as an editor is obviously to start editing all of this material together. You can see that we've got a series of what we call best takes. So here you can see that we've got close-up shots of Principal Everdon. We've also got close-up shots of Vice Principal Garrett. We've got this sort of like shot where they argue, when they stand up and argue. And we've got close-up shots of Harper. And we've also got a sort of a medium-wide shot, sort of profile shot of the entire scene as well. There's also some alternative takes, so you can see we've got different sort of slightly looser angle of some of Garrett's lines. We've also got another additional angle here of the sort of side part of the scene, and we've also got something called pickups, which we'll come on to. So these are sort of specific angles or specific actions that the director wanted to incorporate. So we need to think about incorporating those as well. To begin with, though, what is quite useful is to be able to just sort of focus on what we're working with at one time or another. So I'm just going to bring the playhead back to the beginning. And the first place I'm going to start is going into this best takes bin here. So this is a smart bin that was set up. It's a custom smart bin. And I'm going to select all of these clips, and then I'm going to drag all of them into the source viewer. Now, it might look as though what I've just done is basically opened the first clip, but I've done a little bit more than that, because what I've also done is I've preloaded the viewer. Okay, so up at the top here, I've got this menu, and this menu will show the previous up to 10 clips that we have opened in the source viewer. So what I've just done here is, just by dragging all of those clips into the source viewer, it means that I can then access them just by using this menu. The advantage of which means that I don't need the media pool, at least not for the moment. Okay, all right, so that's the first thing. So make sure I've got all of those best takes open in the source viewer. The other thing that I find useful for this as well, make that a little bit bigger, is to turn on my audio waveforms in the source clip as well. So first of all, I'm going to choose the first clip that I actually want to edit into this timeline. So the first one I'm going to open up is called TML Wide WS3. So wide shot 3. So make sure that that is the clip that is currently open in your source viewer. So as you can see, this is the part of the scene where Harper Hudson walks in and sits down, and then the dialogue sort of progresses for a little bit. There we go. That's where they stand up. That's where they sit down and breathe. Okay. So in the timeline, first of all, I'm just going to play the timeline from the beginning, and I want to mark the point in the timeline where we have this opening wide shot here, and then I need to step in. I need to step in on the action. So I'm just going to play this forward a little bit.
Thank you, Willow.
Officer Willow, help yourself to a malasada.
So Willow walks out a shot,
Harper, have a seat.
and just about there, I think. So this is where Harper has pulled the seat back. She's just about to sit down. Okay, so that is going to be my in point. I'm going to play the rest of the scene, and I want to find the point where Principal Everdon, she turns to Vice Principal Garrett and says, Vice Principal Garrett, and then he nods at her. So I'm going to find the point just before he nods. All right, so here we go, play forwards.
Harper, you do understand that this is a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Principal Everdon.
Vice Principal Garrett.
So there, just as he's turned towards her, Vice Principal Garrett, just as he's turned towards her, but before he nods. And that is my out point. I'm going to switch to the source viewer. A quick way of doing that is just by pressing Q on my keyboard. You can click in the source viewer as well. And again, I'm going to find the same in point location. Bearing in mind this is a completely separate take. All right. So here we go. Play forwards.
Have a seat.
So again, I'm just going to find a point probably about there, just as she's sort of moving into position. And that's my in point. Now this is where it gets interesting. Okay, because you'll see that I've already got my preview marks enabled. So again, if you didn't do that or you can't remember that, you'll find them in the view menu down towards the bottom of the view menu. And again, that's the same in Resolve 20 as it is in Resolve 19. So you can turn on your preview marks. And the preview mark, remember, is showing me, if I was to do a 3-point edit, where this edit will finish. Yeah, so based on the duration of the clip in the timeline for that piece of dialogue, this is where it would finish. So you don't need to do this. Do not do this. I am just going to make an overwrite edit. So the clip is now in the timeline. I'm just going to increase the audio so that you can hear this a little bit because it is quite quiet, I appreciate. And I'm just going to play this, but again, you don't need to do the edit. So here we go, play it.
Harper, have a seat. Harper, you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Principal.
And straight away you can see the problem. The problem is that this take here that I've got is actually longer. The performance is longer by everyone involved. So obviously the problem that I now have is I've only overwritten a part of that into the timeline, and I've lost the last few seconds of that line before Everdon turns to Garrett. All right? So that's what the problem is here. A regular overwrite edit won't work. If I did an insert, that would also not work because I'd effectively get repeated lines. Yeah? Now, of course, what I could do here is I could just simply go into trim edit mode and I could trim that line out, but in order to get it right is going to take me a bit of time. So instead, I'm going to undo that so that I've got my in and out points back. And this time I'm going to go back into the source viewer and I'm going to play until I reach the same point in this particular take. Yes? So I'm going to play it forward.
Harper, you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Principal Everdon.
Vice Principal Garrett.
And again, I'm just going to stop just as Garrett is turning towards Everdon. Remember, before the nod. In actual fact, I've still got a visual reference to what that out point will look like. So you can already see that this is actually a lot longer than where the original shot would have ended if I was to do an overwrite edit. But, hang on. I've now got 4 points. I've got 2 in points and I've got 2 out points. So the rule of a 3-point edit is you'll only need 3 of those, right? And Resolve will always use the shorter of the 2 durations, all right? So in order to use both of those edits, I need to use all 4 points. I need to use a different sort of edit. And this is called ripple overwrite. And you can see the duration of this clip between the in and the out points is, for me, it's just under 14 seconds. Yeah, one more frame and it would be 14 seconds exactly. Whereas the duration of this part of the dialogue in the wide shot is just over 11, possibly 12. So there's about 2 seconds difference in the overall duration of the two. And what the ripple overwrite will do is it will overwrite the portion between the in and the out point, but, and this is the crucial bit, it will ripple the timeline within those in and out points in order to accommodate the different duration. Again, the easiest way to demonstrate this is to actually show you. So you can do this. If I take the clip, I bring it over here, there is your ripple overwrite option down at the bottom. Again, I let go and it changes the duration of the timeline. I just increase the volume a little bit, just so that to be in a bit more keeping and you'll be able to hear it.
Harper, have a seat. Harper, you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Principal Everett.
Vice Principal Garrett?
You killed the centennial palm tree.
And there we are. We're now into the scene. You can now see I've got this entire take, the duration, and it's been edited in exactly where I want it. Now, it might not be perfect. Yeah, remember, because this is a rough cut, so don't worry about it being perfect. This means that we can start piecing this scene together much more efficiently than if I was editing each shot in one at a time and trimming it out to the right duration. So let's move the playhead to the edit point that I've just created on the wide shot. So this is where Garrett has nodded towards Everton. Again, I'm going to set an in point on that edit point. So for this major part of the scene, this is a conversation between the Vice Principal Garrett and Harper. So there's a little bit of dialogue that goes between them, a bit of an antagonistic relationship between them as well. Now, what's important about this, I'm just going to draw your attention to, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you the scene from a wide point, is partway through the scene, you will notice that Principal Everton walks around Harper and Garrett. All right, so this is an important move of this character. Not so much that it's an important move in terms of the dramatic nature of the scene, but the fact that she actually moves location in the scene. All right, so this is really important. However, I'm going to set the out point just here, just as Garrett is starting to get quite worked up and says, she stole school property. She actually stole a little go-kart or something, or a golfing wagon, and rammed into the tree. That's what he's getting uptight about. So I'm just going to play through this. And just when he starts saying she, again, audio scrubbing on this, probably about there, I'm going to set my out point. So this is 29 seconds for me. Again, for you, it's slightly different probably, but don't worry about the actual precise durations, just the general durations. Okay, so now we need to go in for a close-up of Garrett, okay, for this. So, because he's obviously the next person to speak. So we're going to open up our recent clips list, and we're going to choose Garrett's shot. So this is TML Garrett 2. Okay, so this is his close-up shot of the scene. So we're going to find the point near the. Obviously, we have all of this stuff where they're setting up. So let's get the nod in. So as he's looking over to Everton, we're going to add an in point. Again, don't worry about getting it entirely perfect. Just find the point just as he's looking over that feels natural. Yeah, you can always refine it later. So this is obviously his conversation with Harper, which we will get into the bits and pieces of it all in due course. But, and again, look, there is the out point of this part of the scene if I was to just do a 3-point edit based on that duration. And it's actually way, way, way too early. Yeah, so again, the performances are different across the 2 takes. So that's fine. Just as she puts her hand on his shoulder.
It's about.
So again, probably there. She. So you can see we've got a duration here, 36, best part of 37 seconds. But the original duration for me again was just over 29 seconds. So again, we have a discrepancy of around about 7 or 8 seconds between the 2 different takes and the performances on the take. This is a ripple overwrite. So again, you can drag across to the overlay. However, there is a keyboard shortcut for it. If you go to the edit menu, you will see ripple overwrite is here. So this is Shift F10. So Shift F10. There's my overwrite, ripple overwrite edit. And again, I'll just make the audio a little bit louder so that you can appreciate the subtleties of this. I'm just going to play the first edit point, and then I'm just going to play the end here. So I'm going to coming into that shot.
Yes, Principal Everett.
Vice Principal Garrett.
Works for me. And coming out.
It's not just about the tree. It's about.
She stole school property.
And that worked perfectly well for me. Yes? So you can see in the same way in which we blocked out these 2 close-up shots from the main wide, we can now repeat the same process by going into Garrett's close-up and putting in the reverse action with Harper. All right? So back on this shot here, we'll go.
Vice Principal Garrett.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
All right, so you killed the centennial palm tree. I'll just have him looking at her. There we go, something like that. I'll just have him looking at her where I'll set my in point. And I now want to mark Harper's line, but obviously I'm going to be listening to it with her off camera. So if we play through that.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to kill the tree.
And you get that sort of blink from Garrett. It's all about the performance now, all right? And you'll notice he does this look up, right? And that look up is when Everdon is starting to move around. But because we're now closer to the action, we're not going to see that. All right, so think about that for a moment. So the end of Harper's line,
the tree,
somewhere there, just as he's still looking at her. Out. Let's go and find Harper's shots now. So again, from our recent clips list here, we're going to choose Harper 2, so TML Harper 2. And here we have Harper's lines. Yeah, various reaction shots from her, but towards the beginning here.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
So as she's looking at him, again, I'm interested in the dialogue. You killed the centennial palm tree. So as she's looking at him, that's my in point. Again, I've got one eye on the performance, but I'm concentrated primarily on the dialogue. So let's have a listen to her.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to kill the tree.
So probably just about there, and I'll add an out point. This point, you can see that I can barely see my preview mark, but there is a duration discrepancy. So 5:10 for me in the source, 4:14. So less than a second, but still enough to make a difference. Yes, yeah. So again, Shift F10 to make that a ripple overwrite. Let's just bring the level up a touch. I should have maybe corrected for these audio levels before we prepared the project, but hey, you know, forgive me. If we play through now, we'll have a reaction shot from Garrett, but we'll have his next line that we're interested in. Remember, Everdun has started her walk around.
Please call it by its name. It's the centennial palm tree.
So just there, I think. That's where my in will be. And again, we'll now play forwards a little bit, and we're listening for Harper's next line. This is where she says, can't you just call it a tree?
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
Now again, Garrett's reaction is interesting here. He's got a little twitch in the eye.
Just call it a palm tree.
But again, I'm interested in dialogue. So after Harper has said her line, that's my out point. I'm going to switch back to the source now by pressing Q. And now I'm going to find the same line of dialogue again from Harper.
Please call it by its name. It's the centennial palm tree.
And she does this little squint.
Centennial palm tree.
So probably just there where she's about to say the line.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
Again, I'll have her looking at him. That's where my out point will be. So again, look at the discrepancy in the duration. So 4:05 here, 3:09. So again, less than a second, but it's all important, those different frames. Shift F10 for the overwrite, ripple overwrite. And again, I'll just adjust that audio level a touch. And then finally, there is the last line from Harper. So this is where he says, it's the centennial palm tree. It's what it's called.
It's the centennial palm tree.
And again, we've got a little bit of a directing problem here. She's going to move in and she's going to obscure him. So probably earlier rather than later on this after he's finished his line. In point. And again, I'll play forwards.
Do they even live that long?
It's not.
Okay, so it's a little bit hard to hear. But Harper is saying, you know, but it's a tree or something like that. I forget the exact line, but it's getting quite tense in there. Yeah, between the two. There's quite a lot of animosity between the two. Oh, do they even live that long? That's the line that she said. It's the centennial palm tree. She comes up, do they even live that long? All right. So there's my out point for the moment. And we press Q to go back to the source viewer. And again, I'll find the next line of dialogue.
It's the centennial palm tree.
So just as she's coming and leaning in on him, leaning into him, I should say.
Do they even live that long?
And again, hold his gaze. There's my out point. So again, just looking at the discrepancies in the duration, 5:10, 4:17. I mean, you know, fractions of a second we're talking now in the difference between the two, but enough to make that difference. Shift F10. Hopefully you can see how that is working. I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to play the scene as it currently stands, just so that we get a sense of it here. All right. So I won't play it all. Play it from where Willow leaves the shot.
Harper, have a seat. Harper, you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Miss Warren.
Vice Principal Garrett.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to kill the tree.
Please call it by its name. It's the centennial palm tree.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
It's the centennial palm tree.
Do they even live that long?
It's not just about the tree. It's about...
She stole school property.
Logo gave me the security card.
And she ran from class.
That's not me. I always do that.
Okay, think you get the idea. Yes. All right. So you can see how that we've actually built up that scene. Yes. So the scene's flowing. It's still a rough cut. Yes. It's still not the final finished piece, but you get to see how we built up that scene. So that's built up the basics of the scene, and you can see how the different angles provide the coverage. We've still got a kind of a few holes in it. I mean, most notably this whole walking around the table, which from an editor's point of view is an absolute nightmare. Because if you play that scene, Everdun starts off here on one side of the table, and then at some point she disappears and she reappears on the other side of the table. So let's take a look at other ways that we can use the ripple override. And one of the ways is that we've got a shot of Principal Everdun. That's here, okay, towards the beginning. So this is in the second shot. Yes, and you can see that Garrett pulls the turtle back, and then Everdun starts to speak. So we're going to put in a close-up shot of Principal Everdun to start with. So from my list of recent clips, we'll look at TML Everdun 3. So this is her close-up shot. So back in the timeline, what we want to do is find the point where she says, this is, you know you are here for a disciplinary meeting. So she says, Harper, you know you are here for a disciplinary meeting. All right, so here we go.
Harper.
So after she says Harper, there's my in point. And I'm going to play through that now.
You do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Okay, so after she says that, we obviously want to hear from Harper. Okay, so I'm going to press O to set my out point there. So again, I'll press Q to go to the source viewer. And this time I'm looking for that line of dialogue from Principal Everdun. Actually, she does this twice. She does this at the beginning, and she starts to, and she doesn't quite finish the line, so she resets, and then she has a second take of it.
Harper, you do understand.
There we go.
Harper,
So again, in point there.
you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Yes.
So as she's looking at Harper, there is my out point. There is actually a lot of mic rattle on that particular shot, but if I just ripple overwrite that into the timeline. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So we've got Harper sits down.
Harper, you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting.
Yes, Principal Everdun.
Vice Principal Garrett.
Right. So we've got the cutaway of Principal Everdun, but when we come back, the performance from the actress playing Harper is not great.
Yes, Principal Everdun.
So let's go back to the media pool and let's look at the alternative takes smart bin. The alternative takes. So this is another 2 additional clips that are in there, and I want to load both of those into the source viewer along with my existing clips. All right, so it's not going to replace the existing clips unless I do over 10, in which case it will keep the last 10. So I'm going to take these 2 clips, I'm going to bring them across into the source viewer, drop them, and then I'm going to close the media pool again. So we want to go with this clip here called TML wide WS2. So this is an alternative angle to this. Now it's not, oh, it is the whole scene. I didn't think it was the whole scene. It is the whole scene. It's just that at the beginning of this, you'll notice that Garrett is actually still adjusting his chair as the scene starts to run. So the actor playing Garrett is slightly distracted by his chair whilst all the other actors are getting involved in the scene. Okay? All right, so let's find the line that we're looking
Do you
for.
understand that this is a disciplinary meeting?
This is a disciplinary meeting from Everton. There is my in point. So if we play this through now,
Yes, Principal Everton.
Vice Principal Garrett. All right, let's see.
so again,
Vice Principal Garrett.
just as Garrett is turning towards her, ready for the nod. That's my out point. So, very quiet, I know you can't hear that. But Harper's performance, I think, on the whole, is slightly better. So, I've got this duration set on this alternative take here. I am going to place my playhead over the fourth clip in the timeline. This is the part of the scene that I actually want to I don't want to use the word replace because of course a replace edit brings in its own connotations, but this is the one I actually want to provide the alternative take for. Yes? And I'm not setting any in or out points in the timeline. Okay? Instead, I'm just going to perform a ripple overwrite. And you can see what happened was it ripple overwrited the timeline in the timeline. But because I didn't set any in or out points, what it's done is it's used the existing in and out points of that particular clip in order to define how much should be overwritten and how much the timeline should be rippled by. So if I just undo that, this is so minor as to be barely noticeable. This is the overall duration of the timeline, 1 minute 42:04, right? Because I've got no in or out points in. When I perform the ripple overwrite, it's now 42, so four frames shorter, yes? But an all-important 4 frames. Let's bring the audio up a little bit there, and I'll just play that section through.
Harper, you do understand that you're here for a disciplinary meeting?
Yes, Principal Everton.
Vice Principal Garrett.
There we go. We can use the same technique for a later shot as well. So rather than having to mark a clip or put in and outs in the timeline, if we move to the penultimate clip here in the timeline, so this is where we have a close-up of Garrett and Everton's hand comes into shot. So it's the last but one clip in our current timeline. So again, just place the playhead over it. From the source viewer, we can choose TML Garrett 3. So this is a different take of Garrett's line. So I'm going to go towards the end here. So this is where Harper's speaking to him. And I don't know if you can see that. There's like a twitch in his eye. So I'm going to set the in point just before there. I don't think Harper is speaking, but even if she is, we can deal with that later. So just before the twitch in his eye, it's like a reaction to what he's heard from her.
It's not just about the tree.
And then again, I'm listening for the line where he says shh.
It's about...
So again, about there, with audio scrubbing on, as my out point. And then again, we can perform a ripple overwrite, change the audio of that. And it might be that you prefer the close-up shot, not a problem at all, but these are just options, of course.
Do they even live that long?
It's not just about the tree. It's about...
She stole school property.
Let's deal with the elephant in the room with this scene. And that particular issue is the fact that Principal Everdon walks around the table. So, bit of a challenge from an editing point of view. Do we leave that? Do we stay close up with the scene between Garrett and Harper? Or do we somehow show that Everdon is moving around the desk? Again, all of this is completely subjective. So you might say, do you know what, I'm quite happy with that. We'll keep him with the close-up performances because that's drawing the audience in. But let's say we wanted to actually show the audience that Everdon is moving around, right? Really, the only option that we've got here is to actually come back to a wide shot, right? And really, given the coverage that we've got available to us in this scene, the wide shot is really the one that we started with. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is mark a portion where I want to see that shot in the timeline. So it's at this point, it's about halfway through the timeline. So it's just where Garrett is sort of glances up.
Please call it by its name.
And says, please call it by its name. So if you just want to locate that shot, it's around about the sort of 46-second mark in the timeline. 45-second mark in the timeline. So this is where I'm going to mark an in point at the beginning of that shot. And I'm going to mark an out point after he says the first part of his line. So,
please call it by its name.
So please call it by its name. Just going to have it just as I can do, where his mouth is firmly closed. So somewhere about there, I think. And one of the things that you'll sometimes need to do as an editor is you might need to reuse footage from shots that you've already got in your timeline. So rather than go back to the media pool to find that particular clip, or even go back to the source viewer and use the recent clips menu to find that particular clip, one of the things that you can use is something called a match frame. And what a match frame will do is it will take whichever clip is underneath the playhead in the timeline, and ideally selected, but you don't have to select it in this case. You perform the match frame and it reopens that clip back from its original clip in the bin with the frame marked that you've got in the timeline. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like a reverse replace because it's quite not really the same sort of thing, but it's a very useful way. If you've already got a clip in the timeline, you say, yeah, I want to use a different portion of that, or I want to use the same part of that, then this is a good way of being able to open a clip directly from the timeline. So for this, all you need to do is just move the playhead over either the first or last clip in the timeline, because both of them are the same. And then just use this button here. This is your match frame button. Or you can just press F. And you can see what that does is it reopens the TML wide WS1 shot into the source viewer on exactly the same frame and gives you in and out points based on the in and out points that you're using in the timeline. So this is a really useful feature. Just to show you the difference here, if I go to the last clip here and just perform a match frame by pressing F, you'll see again I'm given the same frame and the in and the out points have changed. This is not, and I repeat, this is not the same as double clicking a clip in the timeline to open it in the source. They are two different things. Okay, so position the playhead over the first or last clip and press F to mark a match frame. And then let's find that part of the scene here, just as Everdon starts walking.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to climb the tree.
So probably about there, I think. She's on her way. There. and I'm listening for Garrett's line. Please call it what its name is, or whatever the line was.
Please call it by its name.
Please call it by its name. And again, I'm just going to make sure the performance sort of visually matches. So his mouth is closed. There is my out point. But we can perform a ripple override. So Shift F10, ripple override the shot in. Again, I'll just bring the audio up a little bit so that it's a little bit more in keeping.
Yep. The tree.
Please call it by its name. It's the centennial palm tree.
Now again, that may feel a little bit awkward. It's, you might feel that it's not necessary. In which case you still need to look at, you might prefer maybe to go back to the profile shot rather than the ultra wide shot to show her walking. There are so many ifs, but, whys, maybes, wherefores. Yes, there's no definitive answer to any of this. So part of the challenge that you could be under your own steam at some point is to go back and recut this scene. Yeah, in your own image. Yeah, you've got plenty of footage there to work with. And by the way, this is generally all the footage that was shot. I don't think I've missed any footage out apart from later on the scene, which we don't use for this exercise. We're now in the point where we've kind of got the scene blocked out by using the general coverage that we've got. However, there's also another set of shots that we've got, and these are called the pickups. The pickups are generally shots that a director will have in order to fill in some of the gaps in coverage. So it might be, sort of close-ups or specific reaction shots or something like that, which are, need to be incorporated into the scene. We have a number of pickups that we have, but the main part of that is the movement of the turtle back on the desk. So he's moving his ceramic turtle out of Harper's reach in case she does something, unpredictable. And we've also got the specific angle of the heated discussion between two of them later on. Okay, so let's open up the media pool. Let's go to our final custom smart bin for pickups. And we will take these 3 clips and we will load them into the source viewer. And we will start off in the source viewer. We will choose the clip called TML Pickup Desk. So you can see here, this is specific sort of close-up stuff that's going on the desk. Now, the first one is the turtle itself gets moved out of the way. There's also a little bit more going on here in terms of this sort of badge or key or whatever it is. It's like Harper reaches for it and Garrett stops her, and then this is where they start arguing. Kind of gets lost. Yeah, and in actual fact, from what I remember from the actual final cut of this, they didn't use that shot anyway from memory. Yeah, but again, if you can work it in somewhere, then great. Yeah, but my imagination failed me at that point. Anyway, turtle. This is what we're interested in, the turtle. So we're going to set an in point, probably just as Garrett is reaching for the turtle, something like that. So in point just before his hand gets onto the turtle. And then I'll play it back, and in out point probably just before he actually releases the turtle. So in point before he touches it, out point before he releases it. In the timeline, you know what's coming. Just before he reaches for it, touches it, in. And then out just before he releases. Now notice how Harper shuffles in. Yes. So Shift F10. Again, I'll just increase the audio. There's not a lot of audio there anyway. And we're not going to finish the audio for this scene. We're going to hand it off to somebody else to finish it. But let's have a look at that.
Harper, you do understand that you're...
Okay. All right. That works. It is a lovely continuity movement of the turtle. Except if you look very carefully at this, right? In the close-up shot, Harper puts her elbows onto the desk. Coming out, her elbows are nowhere near the desk. So again, these things are here to confound us, right? You see this sort of continuity error all the time on TV and arguably in films as well, but more often in TV. It happens, yeah, because of the way in which we are putting together the scene. It's not a single take, it is multiple takes, and every time the actors will do things differently. So, finally, we have a basic rough cut. Okay. We have a rough cut of the scene. We've got lots of different coverage, lots of different angles. We're using different cutaways and all the rest of it. But again, generally, this is all still a rough cut. Okay. What we now need to do is we now need to take the time and we need to go back through this and we need to do our trimming. So, to save everyone's blushes, if you head over to the media pool and select the timelines bin, we're all going to import the same timeline. All right, just to give us something to work on. So select the timelines bin, choose File, Import Timeline, and not from the timelines folder. So this is not a catch-up timeline. All right, go back one level to the Lesson 3 folder. And we want to choose this timeline, so this DRT file, so TML scene roughcut.drt. And we're going to import it. Again, same issue we have with the search the new folder, we'll cancel that. And again, we can remove all of these offline audio clips. We can get rid of those. I can then close the media pool. And I'm also going to go into single viewer mode as well, because again, I'm trimming. Now this timeline that we have here, this is a sort of fully rough cut of the scene. In the PDF that you've got as part of this exercise, there's an opportunity to edit in the other parts of the scene where they do this deep breathing exercise. Yes, so I haven't done that with you. It's not necessary steps in the book, but it's a chance to put your editing prowess to the test, yes, and be able to sort of build in your own version of that as well. So that's the difference between this timeline here. So you can see that we've got a little bit of an ending to the scene. Also, we have checkerboarded the audio for you. Now the reason I've done that is because it will just make the next part of the process just a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so to begin with, what we are going to do is we're just going to go through and we're just going to adjust some of these edits, and I'll show you some reasons and some thinking behind some of it. Then what you could do is you could work through the rest of the scene, yeah, and you're more than welcome to sort of finesse that. There is a finished version of the entire scene that you can import. That's from the catch-up timelines folder. But we're going to go through. We'll just sort of share some of the thoughts and feelings and things about how this scene will work. So what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to go in with a simple, straightforward split edit. Okay. So first thing I would ask you to do is, can you make sure that your snapping is turned off? And also make sure that your linked selection is also turned off as well. So if you make sure that both of those are turned off, it will make this entire process a little bit easier. All right. And we're going to primarily do rolling edits initially. However, we will be doing some rippling as well. So one of the things that I'd also sort of recommend, probably from the off, is that we choose to go into trim edit mode. That way we don't have to keep switching backwards and forwards, because we can do a rolling edit in trim edit as we can do in selection mode. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to do here is to concentrate on, we've got the turtle being pulled back, and then we have Ever Done saying to Harper, this is a disciplinary meeting, and then she turns to Garrett and she says his name. All right, so on that shot there, I am going to hit my detail zoom. Okay. Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do as well. Before I do that, sorry about this. I'm just going to normalize all the clips in the timeline, because it might just be easier to hear what we're doing, because I haven't adjusted the audio levels for these clips in the timeline. So select all the audio clips in the timeline. I'm going to right click and choose normalize audio levels. We'll do this a little bit more. You don't have to do it. It just makes it easier for me to play it to you. And I'm just going to normalize that. Yeah, let's do it to -9 dBFS. So it's probably going to be a bit extreme, but you'll get the idea. Sorry. So I've normalized the audio. I've just lifted it all by the same, by an appropriate amount. It's obviously going to sound inconsistent as well, but let's pretend that's someone else's problem, because it will be ultimately for this scene. Right. So I've got this shot here, TML shot wide, WS2. So this is where Principal Everdon.
Yes, Principal Everdon.
So just as she turns to him, and she starts to say his name, Principal Garrett. Okay. So we're going to do a classic split edit. So here I'm going to be able to select this edit point, and I could just roll this backwards towards the playhead here. So you can see, I can see I've got him looking in the same direction both times.
Everton.
Vice Principal Garrett.
Okay, so you can see that that's much more reactive to what he's doing. He's reacting to her saying his name. So we get that in a close-up now rather than in a slightly wide shot. So this is what we would technically refer to as an L cut. The L cut has the vision happening before the audio edit. So the vision edit happens before the audio edit. So here what we want to see is we actually want to see Garrett's reaction to that. So we see him turn his head. Okay. Let's look at another one. So this next edit here, he says,
You killed the centennial palm tree.
It was an accident.
So, you killed the centennial palm tree, and then Harper comes in immediately afterwards. Yeah? Because again, this was edited to the dialogue, remember? But there's a whole set of performance that Harper is giving us at this point. Okay? So, killed is a very emotive word. You killed the centennial palm tree. So,
You killed.
so when he says killed, that's when I want to cut to Harper. So I'm going to place the playhead at that point. And this time, rather than selecting the edit and moving it to the playhead, I'm just going to select the edit. And now I can perform something called an extend edit. And an extend edit means that it will move the edit point in the manner in which I have it selected, which in this case is a rolling edit, but I'm also in trim edit mode, remember? So it's a rolling edit. And it will move that edit in the manner that I have selected to the playhead. This is a really powerful edit. And I can do that just by pressing E on my keyboard. Again, if I hit the / key, this will preview around the selection.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
Nice. But I'm not done. Because I kind of cut to her sort of midway through her reaction, right? So what I can now do, because I'm in trim edit mode, is I can now switch this to an incoming ripple edit. And then I can use shortcuts in order to be able to nudge that edit back. So the first thing I want to do is to press the U key on my keyboard. U will toggle the different side of the edit that I have selected. Can you see I'm incoming ripple, outgoing ripple, roll, incoming ripple, outgoing ripple, roll, every time I press U. So if I go to an incoming ripple, so that I've got the in point of the incoming clip selected. Now if I use the comma key on my keyboard, this will trim to the left. And you can see that I'm getting additional frames back. But again, the whole timeline is rippling. So you can see how I'm spacing that out. So if I just trim that back a few frames, and if I press the period key, it will trim forward. Can you see? So if I go back, and I'm looking at the incoming shot of Harper, and I want her to be looking at Garrett. So when he makes the accusation that you killed the centennial palm, she is looking directly at him. Again, I will preview that.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
Now we've got much more of a reaction. I'll just play that a little bit further.
You killed the centennial palm tree.
It was an accident. I didn't mean to kill the tree.
But by rippling that edit back, what I've also done is I've introduced a slightly longer pause in Harper's performance than was there previously. Now, yes, there's a little bit of dead audio in there, but a little bit of Atmos in there just to patch that up. That would work well. Of course, we're just going to hand this off to a sound mixer as well, so we don't need to be worried about that. But yes, so you can see how this is working. Let's do one more of these. So let's go on to the next shot of Garrett. So not the wide shot where Everdun is walking around.
Please call it by its name. It's the centennial palm tree.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
So again, we've got that time element that we can play around with here. So let's have where he says centennial palm tree. So again, it's the emphasis.
It's the centennial.
So there, that's when I want to see Harper. I'll select the edit point as a roll initially, and then make my extend edit. And we've kind of got a built-in split edit here, I should say, where we've got, you know, please call it by its name, it's the centennial palm tree. So effectively, that's kind of like a split edit, even though it's technically, you know, not in the timeline. But anyway, let's have a look at this now.
It's the centennial palm tree.
Again, Harper's just got a sort of gulp. Do we want that performance? Don't we want that performance? It's all sorts of questions and things that you need to be going through your head here. I'm actually going to go to an incoming ripple edit again. And this time, I'm going to trim it forward. So I'm going to use the period key there. So just before Harper just does this little squint on the incoming shot. That's where I want to come there. So she's sort of, it's like this disdain towards this. He's saying, it's the centennial, really, palm tree, really, yeah? But again, by tightening that up, what I've done is I've actually decreased the time between the two takes, the two lines of dialogue, yes? So now...
It's the centennial palm tree.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
I think we got time to just do a couple more things. So one more of these.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
Palm tree. Again, let's go in with his
Can't
reaction.
you just call it a palm tree?
The horror on his face. Let's see if we've got any more of that. He's got that little twitch back. Does that twitch in his eye? Yeah, can we really push it? Probably not the blink. Probably after the blink. And the utter horror in his face. You can't just call it a palm tree. It's the centennial palm tree.
Can't you just call it a palm tree?
It's the centennial palm tree.
Think you've got the measure. This is where the hard work is. Building the rough cut is the easy bit. Making it all work together afterwards, this is the hard bit. This is the editing. This is where an editor comes in. Right. Okay, one more thing then, and then we'll have to wrap it up for today. So I hope you've enjoyed this session. I've enjoyed teaching this, no end. This has been wonderful. Not that I don't enjoy teaching most of the time, but I've so enjoyed teaching this finally. There's one other way in which we can trim things, and I'll be honest, this isn't my favourite way. But I do know a lot of editors who like to do it, particularly if you've come from an Avid or something like that. And that's what in Resolve we call dynamic trimming. And in Avid you would probably call JKL trimming. Okay, so I'll just show you how this works. It is covered in the PDF, so you can have a bit more of a play with it. Just make sure you don't have anything selected initially, but I'm just coming to this edit point here. This is the next line of dialogue.
It's the centennial palm tree.
Okay. And I'm just going to position the playhead near that edit point because you have this option here. This is called your dynamic trim. And dynamic trim allows you to use your keyboard in order to be able to perform the trim itself. Okay, so you can enable dynamic trim by either clicking this button here or by pressing W on your keyboard. All right. Either way, when you enable dynamic trim, the playhead turns bright yellow. And this is more of a warning rather than anything else because the rules have changed. All right. So previously, when you've pressed the space bar, your timeline plays. But now when I press the space bar,
Palm tree.
it plays around the current position in the timeline. All right. So space bar is no longer play everything from this point on. It's play around this point where your playhead is. So it's kind of like using the / key that we've used previously. But also the JKL keys, which you may have been using for playback, also perform the trim. So just to show you what I mean by this, I'm going to use the U key here to select this as a rolling edit. And you'll see I've just got the video selected. Now, when I use JK and L,
Here's the most leaning centennial palm tree.
you can see how that edit point is being rolled. Right, so if I just...
It's the centennial.
So maybe we want to...
It's the centennial.
So there, that's where I want it to be. So you see that K sort of stops my playback, and now when I press spacebar again,
It's the centennial palm tree.
and then again, I might want to just tighten that up. So again, same sort of thing. Incoming ripple edit, use the L key.
Palm tree. Here's the most lineal palm tree. It's the centennial palm tree.
Yeah. It takes a bit of practice. Right? It takes a bit of practice. I am not a dynamic trimmer day to day. I am very much driven by keyboard and mouse, but I am not. I don't tend to use my dynamic trimming very much. That said, as I said, I know plenty of people who do. So I don't want to obviously say that that's not something that you should be aware of. It is absolutely something that you should be aware of. So off you go. You have more than enough understanding of this scene, hopefully by now, to be able to either recut it yourself or to be able to take what we have here and to be able to finesse it. Remember, there is a finished version of this timeline that you can import. It is in the Catch-Up Timelines folder. It is called TML Scene Rough Cut Finished. So we can import that. Again, same issue with the offline clips, which I shall remove. And there it is. There is a finished version of this edit. So I can let you watch that to your heart's content.